Hello, welcome back. I asked you guys a question on Instagram a while ago asking you what the last word you learned was. And I got a list of fantastic words, some words I didn't even know, and I had to learn them myself. But I decided to pick a few words that I thought are interesting, things that you can use or things that you're going to hear, that are going to be good for you to know, and bring them to you today. So I've got a short list of words from you guys, words that you told me, well, maybe not you, but people on Instagram, if you're not following me there, please do. That followers on Instagram told me they have learned, and I have put them in a context and I'm gonna teach them to you today. So let's get started. The first word is a word I love, and a word that when I learned, I felt that kind of gave a boost to my English, So the word is condescending. When someone speaks to you in a condescending way, it's like they feel they are superior to you, they are above you. So it's almost like they talk to you like you're nothing. So they talk to you in a condescending way. So you can say that somebody speaks in a condescending way, but you can also use this word to describe a person. Oh, she's very condescending. This means the way she speaks to people is condescending. So she's very condescending. If you are a non-native speaker, well, you obviously are a non-native speaker, right? Exactly. So in your case, you probably felt at some point that a person was talking to you in a condescending way. Like you're trying to speak to them in English. You know that feeling, right? You're trying to speak to them in English and you're really making an effort because it's not your language. So obviously for you, it's hard. It's a difficult thing to do. And they start talking to you like you're an idiot. Yeah, that's condescending. See, I told you I was going to put that into a real life context and it was going to help you. Yeah. Condescending. So what we want to be able to do, I think, as non-native speakers is to respond to condescending conversations in a way that we are still ourselves and we're not trying to protect ourselves so much from this situation, but that we make it clear that we're not idiots. I think this is a good strategy, isn't it? But just know that in life, we're going to come across lots of condescending people, and it does not even have to be about English. It happens often, and it's not those people that are very knowledgeable. Those are not condescending people as such. They might be, but, not necessarily. But the people who are condescending are usually the ones that think very highly of themselves and who are not humble and not willing to accept that someone like you might know more than them. Bad, isn't it? Exactly, because you are just as good as they are. Maybe different in a different way, but just as good as they are as people, hopefully. And so this whole idea of I'm superior to you is a bit silly. But there you go, it's a great word nonetheless. The second word is a super advanced word, is arbitrary. So the pronunciation, it can be a bit tricky because you've got so many R's. So many R's. So arbitrary. But when you say it quickly, it just sounds like arbitrary, like a tree. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that's going to help you, arbitrary. So when you do something in an arbitrary way, it wasn't very planned. It was just like random. It was a random decision. It was something you did on a whim, So if you think about yourself learning English, most of the time it was not something arbitrary. It was something that you realized you needed. You realized that English was important to you, maybe because of work, maybe because you live abroad, maybe because you love reading and you love doing things that involve English. So it was something that was considered and thought through and was decided upon careful consideration. Whereas when you decide something in an arbitrary way, you just kind of do. Something that happens often, I feel, people make a decision to do some sort of exchange program abroad. So they're going to go to England for 1 month. They have exchange programs that last 2 weeks. I'm going to go do an exchange in Malta for 2 weeks. It tends to be quite arbitrary. So it's a decision made out of desperation to improve their English. If I go, I'm only going to learn if I am in that country. So if I go to London for 1 month, that's when I'm going to learn. So it tends to be something quite arbitrary, something random and done on a whim, as opposed to really understanding how language learning works and knowing that 1 month is not going to teach you a language. It's going to teach you tiny little bits of a language, and it's going to give you a great life experience, being abroad and meeting people and all of that. But it's not going to teach you the language. 1 month living abroad surrounded by people who speak your language, most of the time that is the case, doesn't usually teach you the language. So when you're making a decision that involves your dreams, your goals, your money, you want to not make it arbitrary. The next one was the word abide. And I feel like when we use abide, it is somewhat easier to just say abide by something. So if you know Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you guys know him, but I believe you might do. If you're watching his videos, which I recommend you do, because it's a very good way to practice your listening, he tends to think about what he's saying, so the way he puts his ideas together is great for learners. He's Canadian, so you're going to be listening to some Canadian accent there. He says abide by a lot. So something that I've heard him say more than once is you have to abide by your own truth. So it's like follow your own truth. It's like respect it. It's when there is a rule, you abide by the rule. You see what I mean? It's very similar to obey. Another example, when you make a promise to someone, you can say, look, I made you a promise and I'm going to abide by it. I'm going to abide by it. I am going to make sure that I deliver what I told you I was going to deliver, that I do what I promised I was going to do. And when it comes to rules, I think when you live abroad, you are yourself an immigrant. So you have got to abide by the rules of that country. That is in another place. So when you move abroad, you want to abide by the rules of that particular place, of that particular culture. So abide by, it's quite nice. This next word is lovely. It's such a long word. It's so simple. Breathtaking. Breathtaking is something that, wow, is wonderful. So I think a great synonym for breathtaking is wow. So I saw this film and it was absolutely breathtaking. It was, something that took my breath away. I think this is it. It took my breath away. I was like, what? I could, for a second, you can't even breathe because it's so good. So when you travel and you go to a place that you feel is beautiful, and that's a great way to describe that place. The beach was breathtaking. It was breathtaking. It was so nice. It took my breath away. It's the same as saying it took my breath away. But we have a word for this. How good is that? Breathtaking. The next word, when I saw that word in the little box on Instagram, I thought, okay, what is the context here? The word was chirping. Chirping. And the only thing that came to my mind was the chirping of birds, which is the sound that birds make, and the chirping of specific animals. I don't even know what animals chirp, but there are lots of animals that chirp. So it's about the sound they make. So it's something you're going to see a lot. It's something that I remember after I learned it, chirping, and the birds were chirping, and can you hear the birds chirping and all of that. I started to see it a lot. And if I'm not wrong, I learned that from Peppa Pig. I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe. So yeah, and then you start seeing it and hearing it. So it's a nice thing to know because it gives you that very specific word that you may feel you want to say to someone. So you might be strolling in a park and you say, oh, the birds are chirping a lot this morning. They're chirping. So it's about giving a word to something very specific that, although may feel a little bit unnecessary and useless even to you, it is not, because you're going to hear it. And it's interesting when we talk about building vocabulary. I think it's interesting to focus on some things that are very specific but are very used as well. So not only very specific, because if you're trying to learn what the name of this particular part of the, what is this? I don't know, lens cover is, it might not be so useful to you. Maybe it is, but it might not be. But something that people are going to be using around you, it might be interesting for you to know. And the next word, which is the last word, is a word that we have, if you are Brazilian like me, I need to sneeze. And the last word, if you are Brazilian like me, it's a word that it's very similar in Portuguese, and it's great to know this in English. It's advanced and lovely. It's permeate. So something you don't want to do, okay? You don't want to let the fear of speaking English in public permeate your mind. Permeate, like enter your mind, you know? So in order for this fear to not permeate your mind, you've got to be practicing, and you've got to know all of the things that involve language learning, and understand that going blank can happen, and understand the feeling nervous and sweaty, you know, and shaky can happen. So when you know all of these things, you don't let the fear permeate, because you understand that it's part of the process. And the more you put yourself through situations where you have to speak, the less this is going to permeate your mind. But let me give you an example about real life, which is disgusting, but it's real nonetheless. When I was 21, I got very drunk. Bad choice. And then I was sick in my carpet in my bedroom. And the smell of the vomit, I'm not joking, permeated for about 1 month after all the cleaning, all the vinegar, all of the things we put on it to try to get rid of that smell. Nothing worked. The smell permeated, I'm not kidding, for about 1 month or even more. You know, there you go. Maybe now you will remember permeate. It was lovely being with you today. I hope you enjoyed these words. They're very good words. My favorite one, I think, is arbitrary. I find that very fancy. What about you? What was your favorite word from today? Drop me a comment down below. See you next time. Bye.